Om Satchidananda Rupaya Vishwotpatyadi Hetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. Janmadhyasya yatonvayaditaratascharteshvabhignaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Yatsurayaha Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Svenan Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Dharma Projita Ketavotra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedyam Vastavamatra Vastu Shivadam Tapatrayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Kim Vaparerishvaraha Sadyo Hridyavarudya Tetra Kritibihi Shushrushrubhistakshana. Hari Om and greetings from Pearl River. The Asuras never worship the Yajna Devata. Everybody knows that. We have a habit, when we hear such details, to see this story. We imagine this with our eyes, that there's a beastly looking person who's eating a lot and lighting things on fire. And we treat this as a story. Our course is to shift from externalizing Srimad Bhagavatam to internalizing all of the personalities and their vices and virtues and how it relates to us. The word yajna, when interpreted ritualistically, means sacrifice. You put wood, you put butter into this fire, and that's a sacrifice. But think more. You will only sacrifice if you are dedicated. Sacrifice is preceded by dedication. So, whenever we envision this word yajna, you should ask yourself, are you dedicated? And if you're dedicated, you will sacrifice. But if I lack dedication, I'll lack sacrifice, then am I not the Asura then? An Asura is someone who creates darkness. That would be selfishness. Break this habit of externalizing this as a story. This is a mirror to our personality. And the more we internalize Srimad Bhagavatam, we will become Kaushalam. Kaushalam means awesome. Kaushala means dexterous, efficient, effective, and those are very business words. Kaushala means all you do, you become pure doing it. All you do, you become pure doing it. Our son Vyasa, he's in the next room. He sometimes sleeps 12 hours a night, from 7 to 7. And if we tried to sleep 12 hours, there's no way. We'd get up, we'd worry about, we have to do this and we have to do that. We have to plan for that. Vyasa doesn't have any responsibilities. He's doing, but he's not essentially becoming pure in what he does. He doesn't have that framework, that circumstance yet. But all of us, we have plenty of opportunities, plenty of responsibilities to become purer doing what we're doing. That's what Kaushalam is when there's dedication. A lack of dedication, all we do, we just become more complaining oriented, cynical, and on and on and on. Okay? This is especially important as we complete our third skanda of Srimad Bhagavata. Rishi Kardama, upon the birth of Bhagwan Kapila, leaves Devi Devahuti. Why? Why does he leave her? Perhaps to give her space to reflect. In an extreme example, suppose there's an abusive relationship. The person who's being abused, when they leave that relationship, obviously it helps them. I also feel it will help the abuser realize what they're doing. That space is created for one to reflect on who one is. So he allows Devi Devahuti to reflect. And she starts to learn from Bhagwan Kapila. And one of his primary messages, as long as you inquire means outside, external, you will feel your limits are real. This body aging, the agitation of the mind, as long as we inquire. Once we start to inquire, what is the body? What is the nature of the mind? Those limits start to have less of a hold on you. We just completed our 100-hour silence retreat. And I was sharing with all how appreciative I was of the calmness of their bodies, how they followed those disciplines. I feel perhaps near hour 50 or 60, they were more disidentified from their bodies than ever. It didn't matter if their back hurts or they had to scratch their ankles. They were tuned into a deeper part of who they are. Those limits are dismantled then. Bhagwan Kapila shares that one has to develop their concentration. Develop their concentration. There's so many online games that you can play to develop your concentration, like Lumosity. You can play Sudoku and so on and so forth. But what's the point of that concentration? So you can match puzzle pieces better? Bhagwan Kapila says your concentration should be so that one is perpetually engaged in japa. That's Bhagwan's nama. And that concentration lets you go deeper from nama to rupa. Remember, we were taught how to contemplate, to see all of the details of God. You have to go deeper from rupa to guna, to the virtues of Bhagwan. Like you take Bhagwan Shiva as an example. Have you noticed the crooked moon in his hair? Of course you have. The way that Tulsidas Ji studies Bhagwan Shiva's moon, he says that a beautiful person is one who can make those who are not so beautiful, beautiful also. That crooked moon is not beautiful. That which is crooked tends not to be beautiful. But when Bhagwan Shiva adorns that moon, even that moon is worshipped, correct? Now, as you concentrate on how Bhagwan Shiva has this virtue, whatever you concentrate on, you will begin to identify with. We will start to be the same way. And finally, that concentration should take us from guna to dhamma. Name some of the dhammas of Bhagwan. Kailasha, Vaikunta, Haridwara, correct? Chinmaya. We can keep on going like that. Is anyone pointing at themselves? Did any of you think about you? How come? You think Bhagwan lives in a bricks and mortar place? So Bhagwan is not in this Hilton right now. We have to feel that within ourselves, but that only comes with concentration. This is why I caution our youth, our young adults, and really all of us deeply to not get into this, to not give into distraction. Once you give into distraction, you become more and more distracted. We can't even concentrate on our world, leave alone on Bhagwan. And one more message, which is the halfway mark of this whole Kapila Upadesha, and we'll study more. When we start to feel that we are divine, myness goes away and I-ness goes away. Myness is greed, I-ness is desire. Now, who else is a symbol of greed and desire? Hiranyaksha is greed and Hiranyakashipu is desire. We had explored that earlier. So the more myness I have in my life, I'm Hiranyaksha. The more I-ness I have, the more I'm Hiranyakashipu. But when one learns to concentrate, to contemplate, then I realize I'm Bhagwan Varaha or Bhagwan Kapila. We go to our final shloka that we will study in Kapila Gita. I'm on the third skanda, the 25th adhyaya, the 24th shloka, 3, 25, 24. Ta ete sadava sadvi sarva sanga vivarjitaha sangasteshvatate pratyaha sangadosha harahite. Bhagwan Kapila shares with his mother, Devi Devahuti. The one who is a sadhu is one who has let go of all other than me. This is called dependence, and it's called bhakti. It's called bhakti in the language of Ramayana. And by being in satsang with such personalities, with such astute minds, then one is freed from their attachment. So if I'm attached to the one who's detached, then I will become detached too. So this is what we've already heard, and I'll open this up some more. Bhagwan Kapila tells his mother, bhakti, or what he's teaching, is the most straightforward, the most safe, and the most practical path to God. Straight, safe, and practical. Why? You should keep asking yourself why. Don't take these statements for granted. Okay. Bhakti, which is depending on God, bhakti, which is identifying with the Creator, is the means and the ends. The means and the ends. How so? Okay. If I depend on God, I will become more patient. Correct? If I love my Creator, I will become more generous. So as I'm practicing bhakti, I'm becoming more patient, more generous. And when I reach the end, I will be established in that. So practicing bhakti is where you put in some effort. And when you reach the end, it's effortless. But you see, it's the same. It's not that I'm going to become realized and become a miser. I'm going to become temperamental. I just become established in that. So this word practical, as one practices this, you will see the change in your personality. More cheerful, more virtuous, concentrating more. And the more you see that in yourself, the more effort you put to reach enlightenment, to reach the ends. A sadhu is one whose only ornament is virtues. Now, if you just feel on your own body how many ornaments you're wearing, correct? Our gelled back hair, our necklaces, our designer socks. We have so many ornaments hoping to make ourselves more beautiful, but the most beautifying ornament is to be a virtuous person. Now, picking up on patience, a sadhu, and remember, he's describing a sadhu, he's sharing this with Devi Devahuti, that you should be like this too. And the fact that we're all together, we should be like this too. A sadhu is one who is patient in all context. In every context that there is, a sadhu is patient. Does that describe any of us? Right now, if Wi-Fi started breaking up, I would become impatient, right? And if you think deeply about this, that's only possible. You can only be free of context if you're tuned into content. I'll share this in a different way. You know, you've heard me share this word independence so much. Another way to think about independence is to depend on oneself. To depend on oneself. When I'm aware of how powerful my content is, I depend on myself rather than materials, rather than prestige. So one who's patient becomes peaceful. Another message is, and I'll share more about this very shortly, is Bhagavan is the one who instills fear in death. And death is the one who instills fear in us, correct? It's like a pyramid scheme. So now, if I want to be free of the fear of death, I can't go to another person who has fear, correct? So us begging Lord Yama, whoever Lord Yama is, someone who's going to buy me more health, someone who's going to buy me more time, that person is afraid also. The only relief from this constant change, this constant death, is to know the one who is supreme, the one who is absolute. Okay. This is some of the philosophy. Now let's get into some of the technicalities. Rishi Kapila, or Bhagavan Kapila, is teaching his mother Sankhya. Remember what Sankhya meant? You all answered it correctly last week. It means numbers, it means system. Specifically, through this framework, to see that Purusha and Prakriti are different. Right now we feel they're the same, but they're different. Bhagavan Kapila now highlights the 24 factors that make up Prakriti, that make up matter. Please try to remember these. Write these, because this will come up again and again. 1 through 5 are known as the Mahabhutas. The Mahabhutas are space, air, fire, water, earth. Mahabhutas. The next 5 factors are known as the Tanmatras. Show me your tan. Your tan is your body, right? We say tan man tan. So whenever you hear Tanmatra, you come to your body. Those are the 5 sense experiences. Those are the 5 sense experiences. And when I say sense experiences, I mean sound and touch and sight and taste and smell. Okay. The next 5 are the 5 jnana indriyas. So earlier I said sound, but sound is only possible if I have a functioning ear. Understood? So ear, skin, eyes, tongue, and nose. Next 5. What do you think the next 5 are going to be? The karma indriyas. Next 5 are your karma indriyas. That is speaking, holding, walking, procreating, and excreting. All of the organs that engage in these 5. What am I at now? 20. Now we have 4 coming up. And the 4 are the Anta Karana. Antakarana means mind, intellect, memory, ego. So now I'm at 24. Prakriti, why Bhagavan Kapila is sharing this, is everything that's outside in a big way, everything that's outside in a small way, everything that's inside in a big way, everything that's inside in a small way. Now, some say there's a 25th factor. What do you think that 25th factor is? And there's a lot that's shared here. It's really lovely. Time. The 25th factor is time. Now, Bhagavan Kapila tells his mother that Bhagavan is time. Bhagavan is time. Think deeply about this. In Vedantic texts, creation only takes place when the gunas, that is tamas, rajas, and sattva, are triggered. It's like our son Shuka. He sleeps so soundly until his brother wakes up. And then he triggers. Vyasa triggers Shuka into waking up, correct? And then there's a whole creation that comes with it. Diapers and feeding and moving and protecting and stopping the fighting and so on and so forth. So Bhagavan triggers these gunas to become out of balance, and that's when creation comes to be. And time pervades all, no? Tell me one entity that's not pervaded or not impacted by time. All is, correct? So that's why the 25th factor is known as time. Bhagavan Kapila is sharing with Mother Devahuti all of these 24 factors. They're like the reflection of a sun, and you are the sun. Now, if the reflection of the sun, I throw a ball in it, or I drop this table in it, does anything happen to that sun? You are the sun. You are not the reflection. You are limitless. You are not limited. There's a deva in our class right now who really appreciates cars. And when you see a car engine, most of us just see a car engine when we put our windshield washer fluid, correct? Like we know anything else about a car engine. And you see it functioning. Now, if we took apart all of those pieces and spread them out, would you know that this is a car engine? No, but it's just together and not together. These 24 factors, if you spread them out, just take your hands. Are your hands you? Just take space. Is space you? But all of a sudden, when you package them together, we start to think, this is who I am. This is reality. Inquire. You are the sun, not the reflection. And he says, if you don't inquire, if you don't know this, even though a dream is not real, you still experience the struggle of a dream, right? If you can recall the last nightmare you had, and how much sadness, how much fear would have been in that nightmare, but none of it has the potential to factually hurt you, to harm you. And as soon as you wake up, as soon as you know that, you're relieved, and then you have breakfast. So these are the teachings that Devi Devahuti receives. And then what happens? We'll go to the last chapter of this skanda. I'm on the 33rd chapter, and I'm reading the 22nd verse. That's 3, 33, 22. Tameva dhyayati devam Apatyam kapilam harim babhuva chirato vatsa nispraha tadrishe grihe. Devi, she engages in dhyana of Deva, of Bhagavan Narayana. And she's able to do this despite Rishi Kardama not being there, despite Bhagavan Kapila not being there. And for some time she feels sad that her husband and son are not there. But through this contemplation, she becomes independent. She becomes detached from what's specified as her home, but really that means all. When Bhagavan Kapila finishes teaching Devi, Devi walks around Bhagavan Kapila and prostrates to him, saying, "You have given me the greatest gift." What could be, this is really GOAT, the greatest of all time. What could be more meaningful than this? And Bhagavan Kapila is very appreciative of his mother. And he leaves. That's why it's what is shared as Rishi Kardama shared with you. When Bhagavan Kapila was born, he left. And now Bhagavan Kapila leaves also. Devi practiced what Bhagavan Kapila shared. Can we say the same about ourselves? She practiced, and she was so intense in her practices that her body, she was unable to care for her body. And what's so lovely is that people who saw the brilliance inside of her, they started caring for her body. They started combing her hair. They started feeding her. And she's described as a fire with smoke around it. That outwardly she was becoming disheveled and skinny and older, but they could feel that brilliance inside of her. And I really like that message, because if you choose God, God will choose you. You do Bhagavan's work, Bhagavan will do your work. And she attained enlightenment. Where Devi was enlightened, that place is now known as Siddha Pada. Siddha Pada. And there's one more detail that's shared, is that when Bhagavan Kapila left, he started wandering and found himself at the seaside. And there, Varuna Devata made him an ashram. And to date, Bhagavan Kapila is still in contemplation, spreading joy for our welfare. And with that comes the completion of our third. With this comes the completion of Kapila Gita and the third skanda. We began this skanda with who's asking who. You're keeping track of all of the dialogues. And don't tell me you can't do it. You do it with Indian movies. If I ask you to tell me a dialogue from Sholay or some old Indian movie, you know it, correct? Now this is Bhagavata. Some rishi is talking to some rishi. And you're sort of right, but that's not good enough. Right now, with our kids, they call everyone uncle and auntie. They call random people in the elevator uncle and auntie. Uncle has coffee. And I have to explain to that person, our son just thinks everyone's an uncle. But later on, you have to know this is Uncle Deepak, or this is Priya Buaji, whatever it is. Rishi Vidura is asking Rishi Maitreya about what? Creation. What is the focal point of this skanda? Sarga. Sarga means creation. And there are a lot of details about this. Here's what you need to know. Creation came from the Creator. That's what you need to know in regards to creation from this skanda. Creation came from the Creator. The next major portion of skanda 3 is relating to Varaha and Kapila. The Sanata Kumaras curse Jaya and Vijaya to become asuras because that's how they're behaving. Hiranyaksha is greedy. He takes the world all the way to hell, essentially, very much like what we're doing. Bhagwan Varaha defeats Hiranyaksha and reestablishes the world so creation can continue. And that's a karma avatar, but we need a legacy. We need something we can do today. Bhagwan Kapila comes and teaches his mother, teaches us. There's an infinite difference between matter and spirit. You are the source. You are not the reflection. Here's what you need to know about the second portion, focusing on our avatars. And you've heard me say this many times. Please bring this deep into your heart. Bhagwan is looking at you, which means Bhagwan is looking after you. Bhagwan is looking at you. Bhagwan is looking after you. Think of all of the names I just mentioned. Sanata Kumaras, looked after by Bhagwan. Jaya Vijaya, Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu. Every name I mentioned, Bhagwan is looking after all of them. So even if you feel that I'm not ready for this, I don't deserve this, I'm going to read to you one of the most powerful statements in this skanda, okay? Listen carefully. For those who take thy name with faith must have already practiced austerities, performed fire sacrifices, bathed in holy waters, and studied the Vedas. Devi is talking about Kapila, and she says this. I'm going to read it again. Now put yourself in this circumstance. For those who take thy name. Now here we are, week after week, taking the name Bhagwan Kapila, listening to his teachings. With faith, the fact that we see each other so often shows there has to be faith. Must have already practiced austerities. You are a tapasvi. Performed fire sacrifices. You are a pujari also. Bathed in holy waters. You are a yatri. And studied the Vedas. You can change your last name to Vedi, Dvivedi, Trivedi, Chaturvedi, whatever you like. That's you. That's me. And we've completed the third skanda. We have so much more grace to feel. Oh.